Hi, all. These are generally conversations between adults after the children have left the table. The language can be spicy and the subjects can get saucy. So if you're ready, this is the Southern Fork. Unscripted kitchen chats and also studio chats with some of the most interesting voices in the culinary South. I'm Stephanie Burt, a food and beverage writer based in Charleston, South Carolina, who travels with her fork to write for a variety of publications, from magazines you might have on your coffee table to the website you love to visit for your favorite recipes. And I'm inviting you to come behind the scenes with me to get to know the people who make this Southern culinary landscape so special. I'm always hungry for the next bite, thirsty for that next sip, and ready for the next conversation. Let's dig in.
The Southern Fork is sponsored by me again this week. The world is topsy-turvy in 2020, and that goes for this show's sponsorship too. I'll share more specifics soon, sweet listeners, but this one-woman show is doing the best it can. If you have questions or interest, please reach out to me directly at stephanie@thesouthernfork.com. Thanks. Now, are you ready for a Before Times episode? I've been holding on to this interview since March, and I just wasn't sure that I was going to be able to release it. In much of the country, bars have been closed for months, and if they are able to open, there are varying degrees of success with that, especially since in much of the South at least, there are restrictions for selling to-go cocktails, one of the only ways these businesses can remain financially viable. The cultural conversation often seems judgmental and dismissive, and visually, much of television news seems to be keying in on that and elevating people behaving badly in some bar somewhere. And so this interview has become a response to that imagery. I get it. When people drink, inhibition goes down, and so right now, so can the masks and social distancing. But I think we're doing a disservice just culturally throwing up our hands saying, what can we do? We're in danger of losing a lot of creativity in our culture, and my case for that point is this interview with Alba Huerta, owner of Julep in Houston, Texas. Not only is the press she's received over the years a case, for instance, she was named Bartender of the Year in 2014 by Imbibe magazine, her creativity, intelligence, can-do attitude, and focus on building a successful business are rarely matched. I hope this chat with Alba will help you empathize a little more with the current plight of businesses like hers. This is a lifelong career for her, one in which she consistently invests her talents, and she created a wonderful culinary experience at Julep, blending hospitality and good spirits. Welcome to the Southern Fork, my friend Alba. You have to say something.
You are holding that chopstick like you're going to eat a dumpling.
It is because my arm is so tired because I've already been holding a chopstick for an hour.
Who knew that holding a chopstick would be difficult?
Because I have to hold it so steady. So do you want to tell people what the chopstick is?
It's this amazing modern Southern technology. It's on an international level.
Yes.
Lightweight.
Mm-hmm. So I have lavalier mics. Thank you, Movo. They are a wonderful universal compressor mic. And in order to make them more comfortable for my guests who do not want to clip them but want to have a nice full sound, I have clipped them to a chopstick. And
This
Alba
is hospitality, people.
Alba is obsessed.
This is hospitality. I'm obsessed with any kind of element of service and hospitality, and you have outdone yourself.
Thank you. Thank you.
By my standards.
Thank you. I tried to even match the chopstick to the, so we have a look.
Yeah, but you're like, it's brilliant. It's sustainable.
But it's
is a recyclable method.
Yes. And more importantly, when I carry the podcast go bag throughout many, many airports, it's so much lighter than regular handheld microphones.
It's forward thinking.
It's all about my own self-care, Alba.
This is amazing.
So thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we are sitting in the Renaissance Charleston Historical District Hotel. That is a really long name, but Renaissance Charleston will get you here. And so excited that we could pop out from Charleston Wine and Food today to have a chat. Obviously, we know each other a little bit from before, but we are sitting in a conference room that Renaissance Charleston has provided for me today. And I'm going to be back in this hotel a lot more very soon because Vivian Howard, another great Southern chef, is going to be opening 2 restaurants here in Charleston, right back here. So thought I'd go ahead and get that Uber in the groove and record some podcasts here this week and invite my friends up to the second floor to have a chat. So you just had a really long flight back home. You were in Istanbul?
I was in Istanbul, Turkey for towards the end of February and into like March 3rd. I came back and I was there for Bartender Forum, which is an international women's food conference. And every year we talk about the future of food. And what that entails is just looking at things that are happening locally and people that are, again, being innovative and forward thinking about anything from food policy to sustainable food design and how to create more sustainable methods of farming, agriculture. So it touches on
talking to each other
and actually having, which is incredible to think about, right? Like there were many times throughout the conference where it was talking and listening. And the conversations were in different languages, and we had a number of different translators there so that we could all understand each other on a much more proactive level. And I thought that, yes, we're talking, but we're listening, and we're all there to learn, and to see how we can be both each other's friends and allies. And I think that word ally is super important.
Yeah.
Because it just shows that we're fighting for the same cause.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And like making a room for, like opening the door for each other.
Welcoming each other.
Setting a place at the table for you. And like, that's an ally.
That's right.
And I think that's beautiful.
I do too. Well, you are known for hospitality, even though you don't use chopstick microphones on a daily basis like I do.
But I will.
So
I will credit you for this. Don't worry. This is your design.
I'll send you the Amazon link.
I'm just the messenger here.
I'll send you the Amazon link, right? For these mics, they are expensive and inexpensive and very durable. But Movo hasn't sponsored me yet, so that's enough talking about that mic brand. I do want to talk about Julep, your wonderful cocktail bar in Houston, Texas, and before we even get into building a cocktail bar, because that's a whole thing, but there's a moment when you change from slinging drinks. Bartending, you can make money, right? From slinging drinks to actually saying, I'm going to dive into this craft. Do you remember that moment for yourself? Talk about it, will you?
Yeah, and I don't think it happened at the precipice of cocktails for me. It actually happened for me at a point where I was looking to know more about spirits knowledge. And I had moved to Las Vegas in my mid-20s. And I did that, and I left Houston where I started my...
Sorry, I had to switch my hand. My arm was so tired from holding the chopstick. Go ahead. So sorry.
I had lived in Houston. I started bartending in Houston. and I call it a career now, but at that time, no one let me call it a career. They would be like, no, it's a stepping stone. Like you're going to get you're going to get a real career, a real job. And
real job.
But it's real money and it's real. Like it's a bill. I clock in, like it's real, you know? Yeah. So I went from, bartending in Houston where I was very comfortable and very happy. And I moved to a place that made me that wasn't so comfortable because it was a lot bigger, especially at that age. And I really had to learn a lot more than the knowledge that I had. And again, we were talking about the culinary arts at a time where bartending was not necessarily considered a part of the culinary arts. It was considered, another revenue stream for a restaurant or a place where people went after their culinary arts.
Good point. Very good point. And
I saw people at that time who were career waitresses, career bartenders. The word waitress was used at that time. That's how long ago that was.
Right.
So I'm not making a mistake by saying server or, a cocktail server.
Right.
Like that was the position that was open when we were opening it for people to come to apply. And seeing that, seeing people devote their lives to the service industry was really important to me at the age of 25 when I was managing people who were twice my age. And then seeing kind of how they navigated through that they had children, that they had husbands, that they had mortgages, that they were contributing members of society that were very important to this particular part of the world. And in Las Vegas accredited that to me for that career.
Right. So it legitimized it.
Yeah, it legitimized it, but it wasn't in a way that was like when we were talking about craft, it wasn't just craft, it was a lifestyle. And then at that point was when I started to become more interested in a more craft centric career.
Well, you make beautiful cocktails.
I try.
Yes.
I really try.
And then there's that next step after that to really talk about hospitality and then the idea that you want to make a space beyond just making a menu. You actually want to direct, like Kevin Gillespie was just saying, an experience and not just, contribute to one. When that happened, did you have a dream that you realized was kind of building in the back of your mind? Like, kind of like when you have a dream house, or did you kind of just start from paper and say, okay, this is what I want?
I mean, I wish that I did. Like so as the mentality of a bartender, especially at that time where I was working and running several bars at once, it's day to day.
Yeah.
Like it's survival. It's like
100%. Yeah.
I got, 100 things to do on my to-do list and I have this many hours. And then I like at least 10 of those hours are going to be devoted to other people, to making sure that I get drinks for other people, that I have napkins for other people, that the bathrooms are clean for other people. And so, there was a point where, and I think that you're always kind of building it in your mind because you're like, oh, is the lighting in my space right? Are these drinks good? Or, or man, it really stuck with me that person didn't enjoy their time or that, they were something, why was that unsettling? Or so you're building these ideas constantly because your environment that you're in is immersive. And it's not necessarily like an exterior part of you. It's a constant thing that's in front of you.
Right. And the more you're developing the vision to see all of it and really being mindful of the experience.
It's immersive. And I think, so it's really funny. I posted on my Instagram stories.
She's doing a lot of Instagram stories these
I do
days.
Instagram stories. I don't do a whole lot of posts, but I like to let my friends, like my people who are like my friends, my friends, and like, these are my people that are like, where are you? And like, they can see my story and they know where I am. Or what are you thinking? Because this is what I'm thinking. So I posted something about Claudia Rodin from Parabera Forum. And she said, we're creating emotions and memories. And I posted a quote from her. It wasn't even my words. And, I had a response from a former employee of mine. And he's like, I'll never forget that you taught me that. And I was like, oh, what? That's like, this is successful. Mm-hmm. I feel successful. And he worked for me in 2014.
Wow,
it's
yeah,
2020.
He's remembered, yeah.
It's 2020. And then somehow that made me feel so good. And because I would tell my staff, I would be like, your drinks can be good. Your drinks can be fantastic. You can be amazing, but people are never going to forget how you made them feel.
Right.
And then he borrowed Claudia Rodan's, and it wasn't intentional, but it was really, I was like, wow, you were listening. Thanks, Eric.
So when you're on the other side of the bar, what is something that really says hospitality when you feel, when you sit down somewhere and you feel taken care of? What is that little thing? Is there something that comes to mind that's happened recently that you feel, wow, that's really nice and caring?
I was just at the Highwire Distillery, and
I'm about to go there now.
It's beautiful. Wow, it's gorgeous.
Yes.
Looking around, I was like, you guys, it's huge. I'm like, this is so cool. Be proud. And they have some Olores Averos. There's all kinds of things in there that I'm like, tell me how this works. How big is the Clark still? Tell me about this. How many liters? But I sat at the bar with a friend of mine, and I think the easiest thing that anyone can ever do is just like welcome you to their space, right? Like, and it's not even in something that you can say to me or be like, welcome. Like, is your body language welcoming? Or is your smile welcoming? Is that a real like connection? And that I think is the most minimal thing that we can do, even as somebody enters your space, like if you're walking into an elevator and just like being like, the hospitality doesn't have to always come from people who are in the service industry.
Right.
Like hospitality can come from anywhere.
Yes. To make people feel at home. That's
welcome.
what it's about. Welcome.
Just make yourself feel make other people feel welcome. Yeah. And it was something so simple as like, the woman behind the bar just smiled at us and she's like, hey, welcome, and she said something like, how y'all doing? And I was like, we're great. But that was such a sincere smile and such a sincere, like, presence. And I was like, I do feel welcome and I feel great. Thank you.
That's great. I like that. I like that very much. Now, you were saying that you really wanted to go into spirits knowledge. So do you have a favorite spirit that you love? No. So how do you decide what spirits to really feature on a bar menu? Because it's going to seasonally change. Yeah, I know. But
spirits are global. The things that change are the ingredients. So for spirits, I think.
Because people order, though. They order by spirit more, right?
No. I think that people who sit in a cocktail bar, and if you build a space that is welcoming, they trust you.
That's true.
So there's a trust factor there.
So you're building trust, and they just are like, that looks really good. I want to try that.
Yeah. Or a lot of times, they give us the privilege to be able to suggest or make, or, have an opinion about something. And it's really, I don't know if that's a privilege as much as it is like, the trust factor that's there.
Right. Right. For sure.
For others to say, well, have you tried gin before? And it's always like, or have you tried mezcal, or have you tried this or that? I don't think that spirits are that unilateral. I don't think that. I think that I like to feature distillers that are interesting and people that are doing interesting things. And like, I don't have a vendetta to make everybody drink gin. Drink what you want.
Yeah. So you're really focused on the customer, the guest, and you really think of them as a guest in your space. So you wrote Julep, and there was, I'm a writer. So my guest that I'm inviting to the table, I don't know, but you have to have sometimes a reader in mind, right? So how did that change when you were writing Julep?
I got really lucky with my book because I think I had the book before I had, I looked at a series of menus and the rhetoric between those menus. And then at the same time, I had Lorena Jones, who's my publisher, and she's fantastic. And she was talking to me about, have you ever thought about writing a book? And I was in my mind, I was like, no, I've never thought of that. And then the answer was right in front of me. And I was like, I have a book. There's a book here.
Yes.
And the way that those menus were explained and the way that those menus were built and the intention behind them. And I was like, oh, wait, this might be something that people want to read. And these might be drinks that people want to make. And there's a lot of keeping the reader or the drinker or the consumer in mind, but a lot of it too, as I've, as the longer that I've been in business now or had a bar open, I don't even know if that's the right word, been in quote unquote business. I'm not in business. We make drinks for a living. There's a huge emphasis on the people that are behind the bar for me as
And that gets back to what you're saying with the distillers. You want to look at particular interesting distillers. You want to share those interesting people with interesting people at your bar.
Yeah, and if that energy
through that communication,
it feeds. It's self-healing. The energy of having bartenders, staff members that are interested in the intricacies of why anyone would go through the trouble of doing this.
Right.
It's the same interest that is shown to us when we're like, okay, and then I infused this and then I clarified it. And then here's this drink that looks like water, but it actually tastes like a million other things, and someone thought that was cool. And then when somebody appreciates you, you're like, thanks, I feel seen. Yeah. Somebody just seen me,
I love it. I love that. Yeah.
And I think about that when I was walking through the distillery again with Ann Marshall, and I was like, oh, I see you. It's like, oh, you chill the water. I chill the water. And I'm like, I know exactly why I chill the water for the purpose of maintaining a healthier water system inside the distillery. And I do that before, so I live in Houston. The water's really hot coming off the main. And if that water is chilled before it enters an ice machine, then the ice machine will run more proficiently. Right? And
I didn't know that, but makes complete sense.
It's hot. It's hot.
Right. I never really thought about it. I live in Charleston, South Carolina. It's hot here too.
It's hot. The water's hot here too. Yeah, exactly. Right. So she's talking to me about this faceted distillery. And I'm like, oh, I chill. I chill water. And she's like, that's smart. And I'm like, yeah, you're smart too. And it was again that idea of being seen or I see what you're doing. I think that's cool.
You definitely use your craft as a language and you use it to communicate certain things, but we're already to the end of the 4 questions.
Ooh,
I know.
Let's do this.
So
speed round.
No, not speed round.
Okay.
I'm not super speedy. So
your voice is too calming for it to be a speed round.
Which is the opposite of my actual personality. People are like, you're so calm. I'm like, it's a ruse. It's not true. It's just my radio voice. So, okay. You use a language. Now, I want to know what makes you hungry. We know that service and hospitality, you've expressed that today, but I want to change that question a little bit for you. What makes you thirsty? What is when you're creating a cocktail, you kind of get that salivation at the end, when
acid.
Acid.
What's the acid in my life? Yeah. Oh man. Okay. So I've thought about for a very long time perfumery. And I started studying in Israel,
Right.
with a master perfumer, and she does natural perfumery. And then I was like, oh, it's even more interesting. And it's like in North Israel, in like this organic solar powered village. And I was like, oh yeah, even better, right? So it got like the more deeper you get into this situation, I was like, ooh, this is so cool to me. So I started studying perfumery as an apprentice. So I think that what makes me quote unquote thirsty is to be a student. And I love it. So I want to learn. I want to learn, like, I want to learn from you. Like, look at this. I know we're talking about this chopstick and actually we're saying it in a funny way, but I'm serious. I'm like, this is smart,
Thank you. Thank you.
And so I've always been that thirsty for that, interested in like, how do you do that? How did you do that? Or tell me how you came to that conclusion. And
That going back to that listening.
and also like, there's points when I can be a teacher, and there's points when I can learn from others, and knowing how do you work this out? How do I become a student and then also be able to share knowledge and share interest with other people. So
Perfumery and
it's fascinating.
yeah, and mixology or the craft of
different.
cocktail. They're different, but there's still chemistry stuff.
They're so different. They're
Right.
so incredibly different. And I didn't know that until I started studying perfumery, and I was like, oh, this is above my pay grade.
Well, I love some perfume, so I'm ready for your line.
Cool. It was really cool. And also just being in that position of like being in a position of vulnerability and like, oh, okay. Let me study a little bit harder, or, I was like,
You're like, oh, this is real. I got to get into it here. Right.
yeah, there's like 200 organoleptic qualities here, and I'm usually making a 5-ingredient cocktail. They're very different, and that's cool. That's cool.
Good for me for choosing this right now.
But it could be, it's perfumery. It's perfumery now. In a few years, it's going to be something else. Like, I'm like,
Right.
oh, this is fascinating.
Right. Right.
But I think that being interested in something that's self-feeling like that is very important. Like, constantly feeding the fire to just like look around and be like, oh, why did you do that? Why did you do that? Tell me, show me, help me be better.
You're a badass. Okay. Next. What is one aspect of your job that really clicks, like on a day-to-day basis, that really clicks with an aspect of your personality?
Oof, I don't know. I mean,
It could be that circadian rhythm.
oh, that's right. We were talking about that, where I was like, I have only had this one job as a bartender. Now I'm a manager of talent of bartenders, and I can operate at a much more proficient level later in the day. And like considerably later in the day, almost into the next morning, because I'm so used to working late, or was used to working late. And I have worked late more than I have not. So I'm incredibly, like, if I'm sending you an email at like 2 a.m, know that that's the only time in my brain that I could digest that email. And I was like, oh, I can respond to you now, because when I saw it at 2 p.m, I was like, oh, snooze. Like, I don't know if I can do this right now.
Yeah.
But I think that I don't know if I hope in the near future I can find some balance to that. But I think that's okay. Like, knowing that about myself means that I can organize my life and organize my day a little bit differently.
Totally. Okay. So what keeps you up at night whenever you do go to bed?
Not a whole lot, honestly. I've focused a lot this last year on taking good care of myself. I'm a part of that regime that's like, sacrifice all so you can have the best, so you can give the best of yourself to others, and I don't know that we were right,
I know. I'm feeling it right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do.
I think we were wrong.
Yeah.
And even more so, I think we were wrong. And I focused my entire year last year on having better interpersonal relationships with people and friends, and like having better communication, having a healthier lifestyle. I changed my diet. I lost 70 pounds.
I wasn't going to say anything, but I had not seen you since last year. And I was like, wait.
If you haven't seen me in a while, you're like, huh? And I'm like,
yeah.
And I'm like, hey.
But you have so much energy.
Seen you in like a year.
Yeah, I know.
And I forget sometimes because what you've like, it radiates what you feel inside.
It does, yeah.
And just being a little nicer to myself overall. So I have, what used to keep me up at night does not keep me up at night anymore.
Good.
Because it's going to be all right. It's going to be okay. I had a trade talk today with Hunter Lewis, and we were talking about facing failure, right? And what I mentioned to the audience, I was like, when I got the email that said facing failure, I instantly thought to myself, what do you know that I don't know?
You're like, what?
What?
I'm facing failure?
I'm facing failure. and, you know, and also I'm like, Hunter's in a position of authority. Like, he knows his shit. Like, and then
Hunter, we need to talk later.
And I was like, I'm not opening this. I'm not opening this email. It's going to self-detonate and everything's going to explode. And so, you know, we had an audience of wonderful humans, and Frank Stitt laughed at me. He's like, so when you got the email, you didn't know why you were getting the email. I was like, yes, sir. I was seriously considering I was like, if I don't respond, nothing to see here. No, yeah.
No, that went directly to my spam, Hunter.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Hunter. My Gmail doesn't recognize your name.
It wasn't just like, it wasn't that. It was like, am I done here? Yeah. I think, Hunter knows what he's talking about. Like,
oh no. Yeah. No,
someone must have informed Hunter, and he's here to give me the bad news. You know, I don't know. What are you thinking? Like that crazy anxiety?
Right. Yes. I do know that. Yes.
So as I've shared that story with people, they have shared their anxiety with me, where they're like, that's really funny, because I would have thought the same fucking thing.
Yeah, totally. 100%. Yeah, you're like, what is that?
What are you talking about?
Okay. I have a magic picnic basket. I don't talk about it very much. It's just on the Southern Fork. And in order to fill it, I can time travel. I can conscript any chef or cook to make something for you. I can source things, and it'll be like your perfect meal.
Meal? Mm-hmm. Doesn't work for me.
What is it then?
Like a spirit?
What is in the picnic basket? It is your favorite experience, culinary experience. What's it going to be?
Okay. So as I started studying perfumery, I started to understand this idea of consuming things without actually consuming things.
Explain.
So if, like, let's say that I am, like I'm smelling, or I'm
right
smelling perfumes, or like I'll generally do this and I found myself doing this when I was like, I'm having kind of a hectic day, and then I'm like at the Nordstrom counter just smelling 100 different things, like, I feel better. And I didn't actually drink or eat anything, but then I got to digest things. Like, I was like, oh, that's cool. Like, I didn't know that you could make an oriental perfume that had a pineapple scent or a tropical scent. That's incredible. And then thinking about, how did you do that? Or what ingredient, like, what's in here, you know? And so I think that's a whole new experience for me that I really enjoyed. Because in order for me to taste, or to nose and taste spirits, it has to actually, you know, consume it. And so doing that with, like, still having an experience of scent, and it does have a connection to like we're smelling every day. We're smelling things every day. And
Right.
Associating those things with a certain memory or a certain person or a certain place. And, just letting yourself kind of be in that recall moment it's just been cool. So I think that, like there's a specific scent, that reminds me of my grandmother. Of like white flowers and that combination of white flowers. I still don't know what it is, but when I go back to her hometown, I smell it in the markets, you know, and I think that would be like perfect.
I love that. I love that. Well, if you are not intrigued to have a cocktail created by this amazing mind, then you're not a Southern Fork listener.
You're not.
If you want to learn more about Alba and Julep and Houston, Texas, you can go to thesouthernfork.com. We're going to have images of the face behind the voice as well as a beautiful cocktail or two, and also a link to her book and in the Books by the Show link so you can connect directly. And I am always, always happy that we can spend time together. And
Likewise.
I appreciate you allowing me to tape it with my tiny chopstick microphones.
I'm like, who's recording us right now? Because there's no way that there isn't video footage of this. It's too silly.
And until next time.
Ciao.
Hello and welcome to Talking with My Mouth Full. You just listened to an interview where Alba and I obviously know each other and we've had fun together before. And it just was really nice to edit this interview and just remember how great a great cocktail bar can be. But, you know, we have a fraught relationship with alcohol in this country, and we all know it, and we all feel certain ways about it, and I respect those ways. The pandemic has really brought that out because there's something called the Restaurants Act, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute, but there's also this idea that, you know, Prohibition happened in the 20s and it stopped in the 30s, but Prohibition exists in the United States. As a former bartender, I have heard many people come into a bar and say, oh, this is this law, you know, there's always a kind of law, you have to know your laws in your state. And they say, well, it's not as weird as X state, a state that they're very familiar with. And over the years, I've learned states have weird laws, and prohibition still exists, which means that you prohibit the sales. So there's been many different things over the years, from a Pop the Cap initiative for breweries, which is a very fascinating study in and of itself. You should probably Google that if you're into that kind of thing. It's really helped the brewery boom. But also when it comes to hard spirits, where they're sold, sometimes you can get them in the grocery store. Sometimes you can't get them on Sunday. There are still dry counties in the United States. So I would like for us to stop saying that Prohibition ended in the 30s. It didn't. And what we're really seeing right now with the question of some bars in some places being able to serve, like in New York City, where you can have a to-go cocktail, you know, like for two, part of your to-go order for the restaurant. Many places in the South cannot. So Alba was able to make some alcoholic popsicles, which I think is just adorable and fun for Houston's hot summers. These kinds of things, if you're not in the industry, are reasons why the industry, 1 in 4 people are unemployed right now. And I mean, we're about to see so many places close unless something is done by our government. I understand that we're asking a lot of our government right now to do a lot of different things. But for people in my world, the Restaurant Act is a very, very important thing. The PPPs don't work so well for restaurants and bars, especially bars that aren't able to even open or sell stuff off premise. And so that lifeline that would seem to work doesn't, because independent restaurants and bars, they operate on such slim margins. So please go to saverestaurants.com and learn more about the Restaurant Act. And I would urge you, if you learn more and you feel like that's something you would support, please reach out to your representatives. I've done that. I've shared that on Instagram stories. There is a bill. It's there. It's just not moving. And when I think about that bill, I think about people like my friend Alba. Talk to you soon.
You've been listening to The Southern Fork. I can't wait to bring you more culinary conversations, but in the meantime, I have one question. Are you going to eat all that?